So box.
Hi, my name is Rochelle, and you're watching or listening to Box F1 Pod. Welcome to the Australian. Wow, it's still not Australia. You don't want to know how many times I've done that. Welcome to the Austrian Grand Prix episode, where we will be talking about all things Austria. It was actually a pretty good race, but I do think a bulk of that can be attributed to McLaren just letting their drivers cook. And thank you so much, McLaren. We've been asking for it, and they delivered. And a lot of today's action was due to that. But there was also some drama in other parts of the grid with other drivers. It was a lot of it leans heavily to the start of the race, but there were still some fun moments. And we'll be talking about that all. But what I did do last week was see the F1 movie, and I was going to talk about it today. But as I was putting together the digital warm-up, realized it was rather hefty, so decided to dedicate a whole separate thing to F1 the movie. So later this week, look out for an episode on my thoughts on the film. But anyway, while we chat today, I will be making something called Tiroler Grostel. Tiroler Grostel. That was terribly pronounced, but basically it's like I think it's from like the mountain areas of Austria. And it is fried potato, bacon, and a fried egg on top, which is what I shall be making, because it sounded good and I didn't want to make schnitzel or roll out a whole apple strudel. But from what I understand, this is like a very like après-ski type meal, and people usually have it. Every video I watched of people eating this dish was with an Aperol spritz. It's very après-ski. It's supposed to be very filling when you're hungry and cold, but it's not après-ski for us. It's après-race for us, which is very exciting. Anyway, so despite it being disgustingly hot inside, we will be making an après-ski inspired meal. As I start prepping it, we will kick things off with the digital warm-up. Lap 1, F1 news. Okay, F1 news is actually pretty short, and it's not really news. It's just the fact that Nico Rosberg has said that, he said this in Canada, but he said that he had reached out to Lando to offer to mentor / like provide guidance for him as he goes through this, which was very thoughtful of him. And actually, because I think he said in a couple of races that he feels as though everyone else that's competing for the championship has someone on their side that's been through it, who's been mentoring them. Like Oscar has Mark Webber, Max has his dad, he has Christian, he has Dr. Helmut Marko. He has a lot of people on his side that know what he's going through and who can mentor him and coach him. Lando doesn't really have that. Like, he has a very supportive family, perhaps a far more supportive family than Max Verstappen, but he doesn't really have anyone who's experienced what he's going through right now. And Nico, of course, has. He's competed. His one championship title race that he won was against Lewis Hamilton. So he knows very much the pressures of competing against your teammate to the very last point. So, in fact, it would have been very good for Lando. However, Lando just ghosted him. Nico never heard back, which I feel like you could have replied. Nico's literally trying to help you. But you know what? To each their own. And Lando had a pretty good race today, so I don't know. I think you still need a mentor. I think Mark Webber in Oscar's career, and not just in his like ability, his like work moves, like moving from Alpine to McLaren and all that stuff. Like, it's not just that. It's not just the like career side of it. It's also, Mark Webber is definitely like imperative to his mental health, to his mindset, to walking him through what it's like to fight your teammate, to be in the world championship title at all. All of that's really important. And the mental side of being an athlete at this caliber is often overlooked. And it is Oscar's number one advantage against Lando. So Lando probably could have really used some guidance from someone like Nico Rosberg, who you're lucky to have on your side, honestly. But Lando never responded. So there's that. But maybe Nico publicly calling him out has changed his tune. All right, lap 2, off-duty F1. So let's kick things off with the F1 movie premiere in New York. They turned Times Square basically into the F1 grid with all the cars like lined up. It looked really cool. There was some great driver content of the drivers flying over from Canada. Somehow Lando ended up, that's not what I want. Somehow Lando ended up on a flight with like all the rookies, and I don't know how much of this is planned. I don't know who plans. I remember, I think it was Alex saying that there's people who plan their travels. They're obviously the ones who are orchestrating this, but there was so many clips of them like on this. I think it wasn't a private. I'm not sure if it was a private jet, honestly. They might have just like rented a whole plane to go to New York for all these people, but not rented a plane, but booked out like a whole plane. I'm not entirely sure, but it was some cute content. They were all just together on this plane. It almost looked like they didn't realize they'd all be on this plane, but I don't think that's what happened. And then separately, apparently Franco was flying from London, and he was going to take Coach. And then Lewis heard and was like, why don't you just come on my plane? I have space. So then Franco flew with Lewis, and I thought that was really wholesome of Lewis. And he's like, it was just so fun. He just like knows stuff. The drivers were all dressed great. Obviously, they were dressed better than their private screening in Monaco. That's for sure. So I guess they've all seen this movie like 3 times, and none of them were big fans of it. But twice actually, sorry, except for Max. He was asked about it this week in Austria, and he was like, "Oh, is it out yet?" What a cheeky little bitch. He's like, "I was on Apple TV yesterday and I didn't see it." It's not on Apple TV, sir. It's made by Apple TV. There were some great fits. My favorite comment, however, on all the outfits was someone saying that they all looked like Deloitte interns for the summer. And it took me out because they took like a picture on top of a skyscraper so you could see all of New York in the background. They're all wearing suits. They did look like a class of interns. It was pretty funny. Some fits were obviously better than others. I think Yuki was one of the best dressed ones there. Carlos looked incredibly basic, honestly, but great. He always looks great because everything always fits him perfectly. Charles went for a like a baggy retro fit, but unfortunately it was baggy and like not the exact correct way. It was like just like slightly off on his body. But you know, he loves fashion, so good for him for trying. All the wags look great. Obviously, I think the best dressed wag was Lily, Alex's girlfriend. Everyone was wearing like black and white, and she was wearing this like incredible red dress. I think it was also her birthday. So I don't know if she dressed extra special because it was her birthday, but she looked incredible. Toto showed up with yet another fucking child. I think we've gone through all of them now. I think there's 3. There's a daughter and a son from a previous marriage, and then there's little Jack Wolff. The son was the one who graduated from USC a couple of months ago when he missed Monza, I believe. And then there's this daughter who was stunning. And then, of course, there's Jack Wolff with Susie. But Susie, that's the only child I think he has with Susie, which I think is where I got confused. And also the other children are like adults, so like I didn't see them around as much. Yuki told a hilarious story about how when he was in New York, he like walked out of his hotel and someone started shouting his name and he assumed it was like a very aggressive fan. So like he like walked a bit, but then he turned around. It was not a fan. It was Brad Pitt chasing him down, wanting to just say hello, which I love. Brad Pitt has first and foremost become such a fangirl of all these drivers, and it makes me giggle because like a lot of that came in the movie, and you can tell which drivers he loves more. but it was just very cute. There was also a London premiere with Naomi Campbell. Ed Sheeran was there because he did a song for the movie. So did Rosé. The soundtrack was actually great. I'm very excited to talk about the film, actually, because I have a lot of thoughts. They're like quite mixed. I'm actually going to go see it again because I think I need to reaffirm the thoughts I think I have. Damson Idris said that he was saying in an interview that like they asked him like what was the biggest one of the biggest misconceptions you had about F1 before you started doing this movie, and he was like, I thought Max Verstappen had no friends. And he's like, and then I did this movie and I realized actually they all love each other, which I think was a little bit of an exaggeration, but like I think it was just him speaking to the fact that the media does portray Max as this horrible villain, but really he's friends with most of them. Did I get it? Most of the grid. But I thought that was funny. Entertainment Weekly, as part of the promo of the film, had all the drivers sing the, or not sing, but had them do a dramatic reading of Rihanna's Shut Up and Drive, which I think was great. I've been talking about that song in relation to F1 since I started this. It's like always in my head. It was quite funny. The only commentary I'll give, the only feedback I'll give is like, I wish they didn't include all of the like echoey stuff, like drive, 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 drive. Like I wish they just said it once. Like in some cases it makes sense. Like the go, go, go makes sense. But like when it's like they're repeating the same thing over and over again, it takes away a little bit from the dramatic reading. So I wish they hadn't done that, but otherwise it was 10 out of 10 content. George Russell's was hilarious. It sounded so posh. And at one point he was like, that sounds wrong. And it's like, yeah, George, that's what it's supposed to sound like. Carlos did one and his was great. You can hear Alex like cackling in the background. It was quite funny. Moving on, Carlos Sainz. Is he headed for Hollywood? I'll tell you why. So Brad Pitt said in an interview that all of the F1 he was asked in an interview who are the F1 drivers he can see making it into Hollywood, and he said Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz, which made me laugh. When Carlos was asked about it, he was like, I mean, I don't agree, but I'll take it. He was like, I don't think I'm very good at it, which is true. He's always making faces and like cannot lie to save his life. But I do think that part of it is based on his current Instagram content. And I mean, also obviously his face, like Brad Pitt's clearly obsessed with him and his face. I'll get into that in the review. But I talked about last time, some of his Instagram posts lately, like when he posts his like May fits, and then like he did his skincare routine for L'Oreal. The most recent one is he posted a bunch of outfits, one of which was him putting on a button-up dress shirt, and he captioned it, "Winky face, rate this look by Hackett London." Sir, I really want to know if like how much Rebecca is helping him with these captions and how much is just pure Carlos, because they are aggressive. In other news, Esty Bestie and Ollie, when they arrived in New York, Haas posted a picture of them posing with some of the New York City cops. And I like don't understand why this is a thing with people coming from Europe. They're all obsessed with New York City cops. They all like have a picture with them. It's so bizarre. Not all of them. It's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Kimi had his finals right after Canada. He had been saying in the media that he didn't even get a chance to celebrate Canada because he had to immediately go into studying. And then there was a picture of him coming out of his finals and just like a gaggle of media people standing there with mics in his face as this poor little 18-year-old just left stressful finals for his final year of school and immediately had to do interviews. I would die. I would like, that's the last thing I want to do after taking a test of any kind. Like, I don't know. Poor Kimi. Okay. George Russell, British. Oscar Piastri, Australian. Daniel Ricciardo, Australian. Scotty James, Australian. For anyone who doesn't know, Scotty James is an Olympic snowboarder, champion, and also married to Chloe Stroll, Lawrence Stroll's daughter. Lance Stroll's sister. Anyway, all of them played paddle together. And it was funny. Not funny, but George captioned it, British flag, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie flag. And it was great to see a random sighting of Daniel Ricciardo, who actually looks like he's gone on like a gap year trip. He's like the beard he's grown, the clothes he's wearing. Every time he reappears, he looks like he's just been like backpacking through Europe. Valtteri has continued his funny videos. If you remember last time, he did a video about how much work he has as a third driver. And it was just a compilation of him drinking espresso around the track in the paddock and in the garage, which was really funny. Today, he posted not today, but like the most recent video is of him like walking down the street, and the guy behind the camera goes, "Hey Valtteri, look at this Cadillac." And then Valtteri goes, "Wow, this Cadillac is cool." And then they open the door and the guy goes, "Look at this seat." And Valtteri goes, "Wow, that's a nice seat. I wouldn't mind." And then the guy goes, "There's actually 2 seats." And Valtteri goes, "And they're both free?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, want to sit in it?" And Valtteri goes, "Not yet." The obvious implication is that he's going to Cadillac. Which I would personally love to see Valtteri back on the grid again. There's been rumors that it's him and Checo, him and Daniel. I really don't think Daniel's coming back. Checo could probably come back. I could see it being him and Checo, but I would imagine they'd want a senior and a junior, not 2 old people, which is what Checo and Valtteri are. Moving on to lap 3, trackside in Austria. Max gets asked about his penalty points again, and he's like really losing it at this point. He answers, "Are you joking? Is this a trap? I've been getting this question for weeks now, and I have nothing to add to my previous answers. I won't say anything about that either because I don't want to risk getting a penalty point because of my answer." I don't blame him, honestly. Pierre was asked about his thoughts about Brad Pitt's comment about him being one of the 2 people to make it in Hollywood. I really want to know if Brad just didn't include Lewis because he thinks Lewis already made it in Hollywood. Because it's weird that he didn't mention Lewis or Charles. I'm like confused by his lack of mention of Charles, because I feel like Charles and Carlos are the obvious answers. Pierre also has that, Riz X Factor thing going. So I get that. But I'm just surprised that there was a mention of Charles. But Pierre was asked about it at the Thursday media press conference. And Max literally burst out laughing at this question and picks up his mic and goes, "Romantic comedies." And the whole room starts cackling, which made me laugh and smile, because I get happy when Max's humor is acknowledged, because he always looks so happy when people laugh at his jokes. Stefan Domenicali, the president of F1, took all the drivers out for dinner in Austria. The only missing driver was Lance Stroll, which it's fun to see the comments debating why he's not there. It's either that he doesn't give a fuck. It's either that he just like hates everyone. He's so unpleasant. He doesn't care about F1 at all. He's so introverted. There's so many options about why he wasn't there. And the occasional was like, maybe he had another thing. It is a little weird that he's the only one not there, but he's a very introverted person. He also easily could have had something else. And he also just could have wanted not to go. But this is not like a media thing. This is just the driver. So it is a little strange he wasn't there. I'm trying to defend him, and I'm failing. Another thing that happened, Max and Yuki were doing a fan stage event, and they each got a mask of a person, and they had to guess who the other person was. And Max was wearing a Brad Pitt mask. And he goes, "Is this person beautiful?" And he goes, "Am I beautiful?" And Yuki goes, "Oh yeah, you're like very beautiful." And Max goes, with zero hesitation, just straight up goes, "Am I George Russell?" And the funniest part is that I saw another POV of this, and George was like, I guess the Mercedes boys were going on after, and it shows them waiting to go on, and it shows them watching this entire thing, but I don't think George heard what the question was. All he heard was Max say George Russell, and everyone laughed, and he's like, what did he say? What happened? What did he say? It makes me laugh. And someone like posted and was like, and people say they hate each other. They could not I don't think they hate each other. I think they don't like each other and are very, very, very different people. But regardless, I think Max could still find him pretty. Clearly. Okay, so let's talk about quickly. I think I forgot about this before, but let's talk about quickly the seating arrangement for the dinner that Stefan Domenicali hosted. So at the far end of the table, it's Stefan. Next to him is Kimi and Fernando, which took me out because why is he hugging the youngest and the oldest? So we'll go from Kimi's side. So it goes Stefan, Kimi, Max, Gabriel, Max surrounded by the rookies, Lando, Carlos, as always next to each other, Carlos and Alex next to each other, teammates. Then it goes Pierre and Charles, always next to each other. Then it goes George, and then it goes Lewis. George just clearly missed his teammate and just shoved himself in between Charles and Lewis. And then it goes Oscar on the other side, followed by Ollie. I'm going to guess I don't know who's next to Ollie. It's someone blonde. Someone between, is that Kevin Magnussen? No, Kevin Magnussen at the end. Okay, someone between Ollie and Esteban. There's a blonde man. Don't know who that is. Then there's a girl between Esteban and Liam Lawson. Then it's Franco. Then after Franco, it's Isaac. And then it's Gabriel. I thought Gabriel was on the other side. There's some randos here. Gonna put that out. Gabriel is not next to Max. Some random man is next to Max. Gabriel is next to Isaac on the other side of the table, still near Max. Then it goes Yuki, Nico Hülkenberg, and Fernando Alonso. Anyway, that was a little of a chaotic description of who's sitting next to whom. But the key things I'd like to point out is that Max is next to most of the rookies, other than Ollie. George has shoved himself in between Lewis and Carlos. Carlos and Pierre are next to each other. Carlando is next to each other. That's pretty much it. Oscar's on the other side next to Ollie and Lewis, which is random. Actually, who is Oscar friends with? Interesting. Anyway, moving on. I just thought that the seating arrangement was funny. That's it for the digital warm-up. Let's move on to analysis. All right, so quali. The biggest thing for me from quali that I'm just going to mention really quickly is that Max realized that his lap was shit and that he had no chance of getting top 3. So, and he realized Gabriel was having a very good race. And so he gave him a tow in the last lap so that Gabriel could get a higher time and finish higher up the grid. And it worked. And it's very wholesome. The starting grid was Lando, Charles, Oscar, Lewis, George, Liam, Max, Gabriel, Kimi, Pierre, Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon, Isaac Hadjar, Franco Colapinto, Ollie Bierman, Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Carlos Sainz, and Nico Hülkenberg. Yuki and Carlos are very sad to see at the bottom. Yuki was doing so much better when he was in a racing bull, and Carlos was doing so much better when he was in a Ferrari. I don't know he has the worst luck. We'll get into it in the race, but damn, bad luck in that Williams. We'll get into it right now. Carlos in the formation lap. Everyone went. Carlos is still on the grid. There's going to be a minor spoiler for F1 the movie. So fast forward if you haven't seen it for a minute and a half. In the movie, Sonny Hayes, Brad Pitt's character, pretends that he doesn't know how to get his car to move, and he was just supposed to press start, And so everyone's basically done with their starting lap, with their formation lap. And then he's like, oh, whoops, my bad. And then press start and then goes. And basically what ends up happening is everyone's waiting for him to come back and the tires are getting colder and the car is overheating. But when he gets there, his tires are warm and he's like ready to go. And that's the first thing that popped into my brain as I watched Carlos struggle. That was less than a minute and a half. If anyone's here now, you can go back like 10 seconds. And so Carlos couldn't move, and you could see marshals came up, tried to push him, went away, and then you could see Lando like peering up over the hill, and then Carlos was able to move, did the whole lap, but unlike the film, the race did not just go from there. The race start was aborted. The first lap was aborted. So the cars stayed where they were. Carlos finished his formation lap and went immediately into the pits. And then as he's exiting the pit lane, he stops right at the exit because his car's on fucking fire. His brakes are literally up in flames. So the Williams crew has to like run after him to like put out the fire. Carlos was still sitting in his car. I don't know if he had hope that he'd be able to keep going, but like his car's on fire, sir. You can't keep going. So he DNF'd, which means did not start, unlike DNF, which means did not finish. He didn't even get to his DNF. He just DNF'd. Then in the very first lap, why did I write Franco? Kimi made a mistake. I've heard some people say this was a mistake that can't be blamed on being a rookie. I've heard other people say this is like the quintessential rookie mistake you could possibly make. The conclusion is it was a really bad mistake. He basically ended up locking up and had no control of his car, hit Max, and they were both out before the first lap was done. I have often said Max Verstappen is like only gets super riled up when he thinks things can be avoided by his team or himself, when he thinks that the FIA or others are being unfair towards him, and that's when he gets really angry. The George thing was a prime example a couple of races ago when he felt like everything kept going against him, and then he was like, well, if you did that to me, then I'll do it to fucking you. And then like by that point he was so angry, not justifying it, just explaining it. And in this case, he wasn't pissed at all. He got out of his car just like, okay. And then Kimi ran up to, oh, bless Kimi. I feel like this was like the worst thing that could happen to Kimi and his self-esteem. Like he ran up to Max and was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know if that's what he said, but that's what it looked like from his body language and him like running up to Max still on the grid as Max had got out of his car. Kimi popped out of his car, ran over to Max, and Max was like, yeah, whatever. This is me interpreting body language. I can't hear what they're saying. And then later, Max said he apologized to me on the track, and then he came to the hospitality to apologize. And I knew as soon as I saw Kimi crash into Max, I was like, he's gonna feel like shit. He's gonna feel worse than he would if it was just his own race out. He's gonna feel horrible that he got Max out. And clearly he did. He came to the hospitality of Red Bull, and Max was like, it's like really nice of him to apologize, but like he doesn't have a reason to apologize to me because like it's done. Like to me, like we've all made mistakes like that. He's young, it happens. He's my friend. I know he didn't mean, no one ever means to do something like that. So whatever. To me, it's like done, but he kept apologizing. Poor Kimi just kept apologizing to Max. And then in his own interview, he was like, why am I crying? That's not what Kimi said, that's what I'm saying. But Kimi was like, I'm so sorry to my team. And obviously I'm so sorry to Max that I ruined his race. Like that wasn't my intention. Like that's not what I meant to do. I just made a huge mistake and I'll learn from it. And I think this is one of the bigger mistakes that Kimi has made, but it's still just a mistake. It's a mistake and it happens, and I really hope this doesn't fuck with his self-esteem because he's just such a lovely kid and I just want him to be happy. And he's so good at it because everyone was just praising the shit out of him after Canada, and then here he is making a mistake. And it happens. It happens, and I hope he doesn't like hold himself too serious to that. A couple of funny moments to me. Oscar is getting a lot more vocal on the radio, which I love for him. I think this is very important for his growth. Whereas everyone else, I think their growth is based on them getting quieter on the radio, aka Lando. I think Oscar's growth is dependent on him being more vocal on the radio. And this weekend, he was vocal. During quali, when he set his final lap and it wasn't good enough to beat Lando, he just like was like, fuck me, man. Like, Jesus Christ. And like he just got more Australian as he was swearing. It was kind of hilarious. And then during the race, when Franco fucked up, wasn't letting him pass because he was in the middle of a battle with Yuki, and Oscar was like closing in on them, and the blue flags were waving, Franco still wasn't letting him pass. In case anyone doesn't know, the blue flags is for the cars that are about to be lapped. They're supposed to let the people ahead of them through. And Franco ended up kind of pushing Oscar into the grass and was very close to pushing him into the wall. He didn't, but Oscar got on the radio and went, Alpine still manages to find a way to fuck me over all these years later, and I lost it. I just like, I think it's extra comical coming from someone who like doesn't talk on the radio. He never phones in, and then he says this, and it's all of Oscar's commentary ever related to Alpine is just gold. All right, let's talk quickly about the McLarens. So at the start, Oscar immediately overtakes Charles into second. Charles just stood no chance. That McLaren is so fast. And then it's Charles against Oscar. And then it's Lando against Oscar. And honestly, I'm gonna be blunt. I was fully convinced that Lando basically, there was gonna be a battle, but like Oscar was gonna get by him. My apologies to Lando Norris, because I was wrong. Unlike years past, Lando put up a really good fight. And so Oscar is closing in on Lando. Lando's defending really well. This goes on for a few laps. And then finally, Oscar's been in like DRS distance this whole time. Like, he's really close. They're like neck and neck, but not like next to each other yet. But Oscar is just like closing in. Finally, he gets a chance. He goes forward, basically overtakes Lando. He gets put into first position. And then Lando doesn't lose his cool, which is what I fully expected him to do. And I almost think this was intentional racecraft, ? He pushes forward and overtakes Oscar back. And Oscar tries again, and they're like side by side, and Oscar's trying to get back in front of Lando, and he can't. And this goes on for a good enough amount of time where everyone is fucking satisfied. Everyone's like, finally, they raced, there was no crashes, but they battled, and it was amazing, and like it just gave everyone this like burst of energy to like see them battling, and it just made me really happy to like that McLaren let us get to see them race, and they let them race. Now, there's obviously some controversy because then Oscar tried again, and honestly, I wasn't expecting quite such a desperate move from Oscar, but I also think it's being overpainted as desperate. I don't think it was quite as desperate as people are trying to make it out to be, but he lunges at Lando from quite far back. It's not an aggressive move. I think it was just basically on the verge. It wasn't yet, but it was on the verge of being careless, which is not what people expect from Oscar. Oscar doesn't do careless moves like that. And then the team got on the radio and said, no more moves like that, which I find interesting because they're right. And Oscar, at the end of the race, apologized for that move. But like, that move was out of character for Oscar. That move is not out of character for a driver. And the fact that Oscar was reprimanded for a move that I think Lando would have easily pulled in a different race was interesting, I think. However, I think it was understandable. I just couldn't imagine Lando getting the same reprimand. But regardless of that, I'm not trying to insult McLaren. I'm not trying to insult anything. I think what deserves I don't think Oscar drove poorly. I just think he drove on the lower spectrum of what we expect from him. And I do think that Lando drove exceptionally well, far exceeding anything we expect from him. Like, he wasn't just relying on his speed, which I think he often depends on, but there was racecraft involved. The way he overtook Oscar back when Oscar went ahead, that was incredibly impressive. But I also think keeping a calm, cool, collected head, we often see Lando lose it in situations like this, and he just didn't. He kept his cool. He remained smart. He made good decisions, and he kind of played Oscar at his own game, which I wasn't expecting from Lando, but good for him. I hope this wasn't a one-off. I hope he's actually learned from his mistakes, learned from his teammate, and able to apply some of that on track. And I hope we get to see it again, even though I want Oscar to win the championship. Max, by the way, is just out. There's obviously still a chance, but McLaren will have to fuck up royally, and Max would really have to push that Red Bull to the fucking limit. There's still 12, I mean, we're not even halfway through. I think Silverstone will be the halfway point next week, but like, I don't know. It's so close. It's so close. If Lando keeps driving like he did today, it's going to be even closer. And I hope he does. I hope it is that exciting, but Max is out. Pretty sure. All right. The only thing about the post race that I found super cute is one, Lando put his trophy down on the podium before he started spraying everyone. Learned his lesson. Big day for Lando learning his lessons. And Charles in the cool down room was like, when they were showing the replay of the battle between Oscar and Lando, Charles was like, "Ooh," I was watching that from the back, like being like, oh my god. And I just love the concept of Charles being in this car, being like, oh my god, what? All right, let's move on to results. All right, so the driver of the day was officially Gabriel Bortoleto, and I think that stands. Gabriel had an amazing race from his qualifying. Throughout the race, he kept his cool. He battled against Alonso. He didn't succeed, but he did battle against him pretty well, to the point where Fernando was waiting for him when he got out of Park Firm and hugged him. It's so cute watching. Has there ever been in F1? I don't know if this is true, but like, I think this is one of the first manager driver on the grid at the same time situations, and I love it. It's so fun. He's just like supportive but challenging him, and Gabriel, they like giggle together, and they're like, I don't know, it's great. So I'm totally there for that, and it was 100% deserved. I think he 100% deserved the driver of the day. He did exceptional, and I'm so glad he scored his first points in F1 and like giving a run for the Rookie of the Year to, well, one race is not, but if he continues, give Kimi and Isaac a run for their money when it comes to Rookie of the Year. Unfortunately, I think Dick in the Box has to be Kimi. I don't think he was a dick. It was a mistake, and I would never want to call Kimi a dick, but like, that's the closest we got to Dick in the Box because he took Max Verstappen out. And I think I want to add a third category for this week called Dad in the Box, and I think that award goes to Max Verstappen, who first gave a toe to Gabriel Bortoleto in the race, in qualifying, allowing Gabriel to finish in his highest qualifying position in F1. And he also, when Kimi crashed into him, he was so chill. He was like, it's okay, we make mistakes, don't worry about it. Oh my god, there was a really cute video or picture posted of him introducing his niece, his sister's daughter, to Lily, his baby. And he just looked so happy and so fatherly. And so 100% he deserves dad in the box this week and every week. All right, so the race results are as follows. Lando, Oscar, Charles, Lewis, George, Liam, Fernando Alonso, Gabriel Bortoleto, Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Oliver Bierman, Isaac Hadjar, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, Franco Colapinto, and Yuki Tsunoda. DNFs include Alex Albon, Max Verstappen, and Kimi Antonelli. And did not start includes Carlos Sainz. The driver standings are Oscar Piastri with 216, Lando Norris with 201, Max Verstappen with 155. So basically, Oscar and Lando are 15 points apart, and Max Verstappen is a lot of points, like 60 points-ish behind Lando. It's going to be rough for him to catch up. Followed by George with 146, Charles with 119, Lewis with 91, Kimi Antonelli with 63, Alex Albon with 42, Esteban with 23, Nico with 22, Isaac Hadjar with 21, Lance Stroll with 14, Fernando Alonso with 14, Carlos Sainz with 13, Liam Lawson with 12, Pierre with 11, Yuki with 10, Oliver Bierman with 6, Gabriel Bortoleto with 4, Franco Colapinto with 0, and Jack Doohan with 0. I remember a few weeks ago, Carlos said in an interview that it's almost impossible when he was asked about Lewis's gap to Charles. He was like, it's almost impossible for a new driver, no matter how good they are, to come to a team and match the person who's already been there. So I just wanted to check. Lewis's gap to Charles is 28 points. Carlos's gap to Alex, 28 points. Maybe 29. So they're pretty on par with each other. Okay. Here is the final product. I never show it correctly, but do you like it? I like it. I haven't tried it yet. The constructor standing is McLaren with 417 points, Ferrari with 210, Mercedes with 209, so they swapped, Red Bull with 162, Williams with 55, Racing Bulls with 36, Haas with 29, Aston Martin with 28, Kick Sauber with 26, and Alpine with 11. That's it for the Austrian Grand Prix. Here, I just showed you, but here again is my final dish. Very excited to consume. And next week is Silverstone. Very excited for the British Grand Prix. Can't wait to debrief. Hope there's drama. Everyone keeps saying that it'll be good for Mercedes because it's gonna be colder and rainier. So we'll see. From the top championship title holders, I hope it's Oscar. But all is still to play. We have a half a season left. Well, not all is still to play. All is still to play for Lando and Oscar. Nothing is still to play for everyone else. But we will see. Anyway, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, share with any potential boxes, review, and follow on social media at BoxBoxF1Pod to keep up in between races. Until Silverstone, Box Box.